Yes, the Yankees are winning.
Good.
It's the Subway Series, fucking Soto and Mets ass.
Motherfucker. Soto. Traitor. Mm, whatever. Mets suck anyways. And Sam, you didn't hear this story, but Sam, you're going to remember this. I met this guy in August, right before I went away to college to Stony Brook, and I met everyone, right? I met all of you. And he love bombed me. I didn't know what that meant, but that's what he was doing. And he was like, okay, and I'm like, well, I'm going to go away to college. I don't know. I said, all right, let's see what happens. So we went, and he started getting jealous and all the things. And so he started saying, you need to be in your room by a certain time. I'm like, just start arguing with me. And anybody who knows me knows that's not going to fly too long, but okay. Let's play with this idea. And so then Samantha, me and all the girls, we went to the catwalk, and he came to visit. The catwalk was a little bar off campus. So he came to visit. And so we had guy friends, right? And so, when you dorm, and people, if you don't dorm, you don't get it. But like we dormed, and we hung out with all the guys downstairs, and we're all just friends, and we're all dancing. That's what we did every weekend, pretty much. So we went to the catwalk, and he starts to get all jealous and drunk and belligerent and ridiculous. And I'm just like, I ain't got time for this. So I'm like ignoring him. But we had to take him back to the dorm because he's in the middle of West Bubblefuck, Long Island. And so, we're not gonna leave him. So he gets into the car. You remember this time, right? Please? You don't remember? And he almost
remember him.
threw
No, I
up in
remember
the
him.
car. And she's like, motherfucker, like, why are you throwing up in my car? Or he almost did. So Regina, me, and Sam are in the car, and they're like, he has to throw up, and I'm so pissed off that I'm like, have no empathy at that moment. I'm just pissed, because now I have to let him sleep in my room because it's 2 a.m, and I'm so pissed, I'm so hurt, and I'm just ready to be done with him. But I'm not gonna kick him to the curb. So when he got out and he was throwing up, Regina's like, "Oh, well, let's go, like, check on him." I'm like, "Who cares? Like, he's just throwing up on the side of the road. That's what you get, like with this jealousy." And then he manhandled me in the club. Anyway, fast forward, I broke up with him. Yes, he grabbed me and whatnot in the club. Like he just like was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, all right, like between that and the alcohol, and I was like, this is not good. So he left the next day, and I broke up with him. And your sister came to visit. Now, for months before she came to visit, he was pretty much stalking me. He was calling my roommates across the hall at 2 a.m, trying to track me down. He was calling my roommate in my room. And it was embarrassing because she's like, he's calling like every hour, like do something, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. I think I told the RA. So fast forward, he starts to call my brother, who he never met. He calls my home number and starts to tell my brother, begging to convince me to take him back. So all this is happening, right? So I'm like, all right, yeah, no. So I'm not budging. So when I started to finally say, all right, he's really trying or whatever, and I heard he came to Stony Brook. Your sister came to visit, and your sister gave a personal story, and she's like, do not get back with him. You do not get back with him. And I was probably not, but I was like, he started to break me down. I was 18. So he's acting perfect and like, I'm sorry and all this stuff. But now, I mean, I knew it wasn't right. My mom raised me big on don't let a man treat you a certain way. So, I mean, I had that going for me. That's why I didn't break so quickly. But 3 months of like trying to beg you back, you're going to be like, all right, I want to hear you out. Okay, fine. All right. Maybe it was a mistake. And you start to doubt yourself. And Lizette came to visit, divine intervention, in my opinion. And she came to visit, and I was telling her about it. And I will always remember and be grateful for her because I think she's the reason, sharing her own story and like, nope, this is how it starts. This is how it starts, this type of behavior. And then next thing you know, you're in an abusive relationship. Don't do it. I can tell you from personal experience, do not do that. And so I didn't go back. So I will always, I'm glad I didn't go back. I don't, I was just very grateful that she was there to like kind of big sister-ish, like be there for me. And as I'm about to break, I listened to her.
What about you, Susanna?
Mine is also man-related, boyfriend. I remember being in nursing school in LIU Brooklyn, and I had a boyfriend. He was a little bit older than me. I want to say like 3 years older than me. he was Puerto Rican, and I say that because the little machismo portions, coming. Nursing school is very demanding. I studied a lot. I had to, trek around the 5 boroughs to clinicals and different hospitals. It was very stressful already, that. And he lived across from Prospect Park. He rented an apartment. So I would go over there. I'd sleep over sometimes, but I'd hang out with him, whatever. And as time went by, it just became more of like he wanted to play house, I was there to like help him clean his apartment and cook for him. I remember I would go to school. I'd take the LIRR from Long Island, go to downtown Brooklyn at LAU, take the subway to his apartment. But before I got to his apartment, like 6 blocks from the subway, because it left me on like Ocean Parkway, somewhere over there. I'd stop at the grocery, and then from the grocery, I'd be lugging my book bag and like groceries, walking to his house. And then I would make him dinner and, to have it ready by the time he came home. He worked at UPS, and he would come home a little later than, I would get there. And it was just a fucking drag, like, after a while. And I remember he had this pirate radio station out of his apartment, and he had like this couple that came over, this who was also in pirate radio, the house music, whatever. They would do that. And they were another, like, they were a gay Puerto Rican couple. And they said something like, one day I was sleeping. His apartment was set up where like it was all like kind of open, and then he had his little house music stuff, the DJ stuff, in a big closet off his bedroom. So I was fucking sleeping. I was tired. You're lucky I'm here because I just had school and whatever. I'm tired. And they come over late, and they're staying late, and the house music like pumping, and I'm like, this is fucking bullshit. But they made it like a comment like she didn't even offer us a drink or serve us. I was like, fuck you. Like, and then he got embarrassed about it. Like, who do you think I am? I'm like, what am I, 20? Oh, I don't even know what it was, like 22. I don't even know
Mhm.
how old I was. I'm not there to serve your fucking friends, and I'm not there to serve you either. And I remember, like, I'll make this long story short because there was a lot of instances, but I remember waking up on one weekend. It was like, verano, and the birds were chirping, like opening my eyes. And he nudges me and he's like, you got to do the laundry. Oh, yeah. I was like, oh, this motherfucker. I remember he's like gives me 2 parts of his apartment to clean, which was the bathroom and the kitchen, of course. He gets, the living room and the bedroom. And I remember standing over the broom and the mop, and I'm like, my insides were screaming, like, what are you doing? Why are you with him? What are you doing? This is not for you. And I was someone who always did, everything to please somebody, no matter if, I was compromising myself. So I just at that point I was like, I kind of like lost my love for him. Like I'm like I was done. And I broke up with him. I don't know how long ago or how long after that, but I ended up leaving him, and I was like, this is not for me. And he thought
Mhm.
he was going to marry me and everything, And at one point I probably thought about it, but I'm not doing that shit.
Good for you. Good for
Yeah.
you for getting out of that and recognizing that early on.
And
Mhm.
also, you
Mhm.
didn't live together.
No.
It's even more, yeah,
I did
disturbing.
get out of learning how to cook, like, arroz con gandules and shit like that. I learned how to cook that stuff from him, but thank you.
Mhm.
It's not I can relate with the people pleasing because man, that was a big one for me. Learning to say no and coming into my no era,
Mhm.
as Samantha puts it.
The villain era.
Yeah,
That came very late for me. I was
me
in my
too.
yeah,
Me
very late.
too.
I think maybe late 30s, early 40s.
Actually, early 40s for me. Yeah.
Yep.
It's empowering though.
Yeah, well, the first time I
Yeah, it
used
is.
it, the person that I used it towards, she got pissed at me. I'm like, "Oh, whatever. I don't give a shit what you think. I'm not going. I'm not going," you know?
Yeah, it's definitely. Oh my goodness. So my story, I was debating between two because I actually wanted your opinion on one, but I'll go with my first one. So aside from what I do for a living, I used to teach as well. I used to teach what I do at the college when they had a program. They don't have the program anymore. And then the students would also do their clinical hours. So I would also be their preceptor, which is the person they do their clinical hours with. And so I always had the sophomores as students, so I didn't know them. And then I would get either sophomore, juniors, or seniors, depending on where they were on their rotation as for their clinical hours. So one of the upperclassmen comes in and she goes, "Oh, Sam, I'm with you this year. We got our clinical assignments And I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, so what are the newbies like? And she goes, oh, there's this one girl. Yeah, I don't see you and her are not going to get along. And I was like, really? I was like, why? And she was like, oh, she's kind of a bitch. So good luck with her, as she says, right? And me, I always take things like that grain of salt because I always feel like people show different sides to different people, right? Fast forward months and months later. Now, this girl started, this newbie girl, and we're still friends to this day. Out of all my students and all my years that I taught, like her and I were like two peas in a pod. We would hang out all the time. My kids were little. She'd watch my kids. She'd come over for dinner. And whenever she wasn't doing her clinical hours, she still came in the office and hung out with me. And we just sit there getting all the tea, getting all the, like we were always together for like the 3 years that she was there. And so that same year, that first year, months later, the other girl, the upperclassman, she was also my athlete. So she's in there getting treatment and she's giving me all the tea about her team. And she's like, oh my God, there's all this drama with the coach and the coach is a bitch. And she's showing me the group chat and so the newbie girl is sitting at my desk on her phone, right? And she's just like scrolling on her phone, acting like she ain't paying attention to the tea, but she's taking it all in, right? And so this girl's like, she's like, yeah, Sam, you know my coach. Like, don't you think she's a bitch?
Mm-mm.
So I go, I don't think you and I have the same definition of what a bitch is. And she's like, what do you mean? And I said, well, you said me and her weren't going to get along, right? And the girl looks up from her phone like, what the fuck? Like, and then the girl's like, well, I'm actually kind of surprised you two get along because, you're both like really strong personalities. Like, I really am surprised you get along. Like, she tries to like backtrack. And I said, that's because you don't understand. A real bitch knows a real bitch.
Oh my God, that's what came to mind when you were started telling the story.
I was like, a real bitch recognizes another real bitch, right? So the girl on her phone, she goes right back to her phone, right?
I love it.
So I was like, we know who a strong woman is, and we know that woman did not become strong for no reason. And we straighten each other's crown out, and there's enough space for me and her.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, so you might think your coach is a bitch. I said, but you and I don't have the same definition. I see your coach as a very strong woman that has her agenda and has her expectations, and you're the problem. And she was like, and so later on, the girl goes, she said that about me? And I was like, yeah, the first week in school. And she was like, I can't believe she said that. She goes, when you said that, I was about to beat her ass right there in the training room. And she goes, but when you said a real bitch don't recognize real bitch, she goes, oh, Sam's about to hand her ass.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Sam handles it for sure.
So, yeah. But I was actually thinking about another student I had that reminded me of my old self. And I don't know if you guys really remember, but like all throughout high school and college, I acted like an airhead.
I remember that. I remember moments.
Right?
I'm like, bitch, you're smart. Like, I know you know what. Like, yeah.
Give me an example.
I remember
had
that.
a student. So I had a
Oh,
student.
she'd say, I don't know. I'm like,
Yep. I would always claim.
Remember that? Oh, wow.
she would do that.
You don't remember that? I remember all throughout high school and college, I acted like an airhead. And
Not the whole time, though. That's why.
not the whole time, right?
No. I figured because I don't remember that. That's why I'm like.
Yeah, and I had this intern once, and I had her in class, and again, she would like, all the guys would be like, ooh, like, because she was attractive, and then once she started talking, they're like, oh, never mind, like, because you would see the airheadness, right? The ditziness.
You went
Yeah, but like she would get 90s on her test and all of that, and then she had to do clinical hours with me. So as she's doing clinical hours, she was funny. Like she was an airhead, but she was funny, which reminded me of myself. I mean, she was so funny that she made my coworker like, when you're laughing so hard that like your stomach hurts and tears. Like my coworker was like on his knees, hysterical laughing. Like that's how funny she was. But she would always act stupid. And as she was doing clinical hours, I'd start to talk to her. And it was like, her dad's an alcoholic. She's the responsible one. Her mom's passive aggressive. And I was like, because I'm like, she's smart. Like, why does she act like this? And then I realized I did that because that was my coping mechanism, right? Because you're at home, like there's all this negativity and you're growing up in a toxic environment. And you're the one that's like, holding the emotion in, holding it down at home. The minute I walked out my house, I took no responsibility for anything. And so I would always act like an airhead. And the reason why I came out of it, because the person that called me out was John, Eddie's John. We were hanging out one time, and I don't know if it was in college or like just after college. And I remember we were talking about something, and I would always have these one-liners, right? Like, because I would observe and I would hear the story, whatever, and somebody was sharing a story, and I said this thing about the situation or my observation of the situation. And he goes, you know what? You're not stupid. You're not stupid. I call your bullshit. He was like, because you know exactly what's going on all the time and you act like you don't know. He goes, you're full of shit. And I was like, my cover's blown. My cover's blown. But meeting that girl made me realize like me acting like that was my coping mechanism. I wasn't doing it on purpose. It was an unconscious, like just a coping. It was just how I was coping with whatever was going on at home. So it was really interesting to meet my former self and be like, wow, I've grown so much. Like, what is your definition of spirituality now? Like, I know for me, my definition of spirituality is very different from what I grew up with. I didn't grow up with the things that you grew up with. You know, me raised Catholic. I always felt like, you know, I went to Catholic school. I did all that, all my sacraments, everything, but they never taught you spirituality. Like I came into that on my own through my own awakening and through my own curiosity. But for you, your upbringing was very different.
Oh my gosh. Oh, absolutely. Like,
explain that.
so my parents, they never went to church with us. They only went for the events like weddings, communions, and baptisms, but they themselves never attended church. However, they made sure that we got baptized and that we had our first communion. And that was it. For confirmation, we kind of did that on our own. Not kind of, we did that on our own. My sister did it when she got married. I did it as a promise after I got married that I would promise to do it, and I did. But that wasn't pushed for or encouraged by my parents. Spirituality for me back then was espiritismo, where you went and you saw somebody for what they call the consulta, which is a consult. It's like almost like therapy, but like not really. This is a different kind. You're sitting in front of this person that's either a healer. Actually, I only knew them as like healers because they were when we would go, they would be giving my mom recipes to put together, like different herbs and things to buy at the botanica, a botanical store, to boil and then to pour into a bath and soak in the bath. And also saw them do these things called the bojos, which I researched that online today, and I can't find one that did it in the way that I experienced it as a kid, watching my parents and their relatives. They basically they had these hand motions, and these hand motions were basically to bring on spirit guides, channel them and relay any message that they had. It was like mediumship almost, but like so odd because these people they did these hand motions. They fell on the floor, literally busting your ass literally on the floor. Like they would bang their heads and everything. It was so traumatic. I was like 9 years old or maybe a little younger when I witnessed that with my sister. I guess she had been around it so much longer that I never saw a reaction from her. She would always try to hold me and kind of tell me they're gonna be okay, they're okay. And so yeah, I remember my mom falling on the floor. Like they would play this one song. It was called Santa Bárbara Bendita. They played that song. I already knew people start falling on the floor and I'm gonna freak out. I'm gonna cry. I'm like, oh my god, they're gonna die. It was so wild. Almost like possession. They didn't become possessed. It was like that's what it felt. My mom never said anything when it would happen to her. She was quiet, so they would say, "Oh, your spirit guide is mute." And so, but now as an adult, she's 89 years old, and every once in a while, when I go to visit her, she'll look at me and I'm like, oh shit, like this is gonna happen, and she'll be sitting, and so I'm like, because she uses a walker, and it's the one that has the seat. So she'll be sitting, and she's like, hey, come here. She's like, I'm feeling something. She'll start doing the hand motions. This time, what she does is she does it in such a way as if she's trying to take something that's over my head and throwing it out. And I'm like, she's like, there's people that have that are envious of you, and they're just wishing you harm. And she would just do this cleansing, and I'm there. I'm not freaking out anymore because I understand this now, and the intention. And she's not falling on the floor, busting her ass, so I'm okay. But yeah, that was what spirituality was for me then. Now it's way broader. I believe that everybody has their own experience of what spirituality is, and I respect that. I would never impose my beliefs in spirituality on somebody else. If I'm asked, like you guys asked, I share what I feel it is. And for me, it's also including not just what I experienced as a kid, but growth. Being open to energy, being open to the vibes that, you feel when you enter a room or just interacting with somebody. Definitely like the ringing in the ear. I now pay a little more special attention when I get that versus, oh, this is annoying. you know. For me, it's, and I've heard others say it too, it's like your spirit guides are trying to communicate with you, and sit with yourself and try to figure out what it is that maybe they're trying to tell you. Or pay attention to your dreams that night. Maybe something will come through them. It's religion, for me, Catholicism. You and I, Samantha, had a conversation once. I don't know if it was over the phone or via the Facebook, where we discussed the Eucharist and like how you related to like what is it, like the elements.
Mhm.
I don't remember the full conversation, but do you remember it was like a similar conversation about that? And I was like,
Yeah, I was explaining how, for me, when I opened up to my own journey of spirituality, I had returned to the church for a little bit because that's the only thing I knew. And I had a very different view of mass, where you see the elements, where it's like they have the candles lit, they have the incense going, they have the music, they have the holy water. They had all the elements creating a sacred. So you're going to a place that's sacred and you're taking in the energy of that sacredness, right? But we're our own sacredness. So it's like when you go to those places, it's being able to take that energy in and using all the elements, and even the Eucharist being the earth. So you're taking what you're learning or whatever the spirit is of the message that day, and then you're receiving it and taking it into your body. So it's a symbolism there for that, which I don't think people kind of connect that.
I agree.
And so when I would go to church, it was a different experience when you broaden your spiritual lens. And so I would appreciate that. So a lot of times I would go and meditate there and I would feel like electricity in my body. I would feel tingling in my body. Like my meditation would be a little bit deeper because I was in a sacred place and all the elements were there. So it was interesting.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, but I remember us having that conversation of just seeing the masses through a spiritual lens.
Because I was having a hard time with that. I was like, how do I blend these two? Because I honor and respect what I grew up seeing, and I don't discount it. And then how do I relate that with the Catholic Church? How do I blend the two? And again, Mel, you with the talks about how you blend the work you do with spirituality. I'm like, oh my God, this is a thing. This can be done. So yeah, it's pretty amazing. I love that.
And for me, I was really lucky because my mom did show me the spiritual side of Catholicism, which a lot of people did not get. And, I remember going to an adolescent retreat, and I did go to Catholic school, and at this retreat, seeing an image of the Virgin Mary on the wall. And, she comes to kids a lot. And just really being close to God by myself in a meditative or prayerful state by myself, one-on-one, not just a ritualistic piece of or tradition of Catholicism. And my mom would say, and my mom would say, no, this is your relationship with God. And she never put hell as a fear. She never did any of that. So I was lucky. So now that I've made a choice over the years to not continue spirituality Catholicism with my children. They went up to their first communion, and I asked them, do you want to keep going? And they were like, not really. But, they already had formed their relationship with God. We prayed all the time. And I said, well, we need to continue this. It just doesn't need to be going to church. I feel like my connection to my spirituality has broadened, but it also is very similar to what I grew up with because of my mom, because she introduced that to me. And I'm so sensitive, being like the water that I am. I have a lot of water placements, makes me very intuitive. And I realized connecting to myself gave me more peace. And so with that came connecting to my spirit guides and broadening my view of just beyond God and the Virgin Mary, but also Archangel Michael and like my loved ones who have crossed over. And so I have a very deep connection with the other side. And I feel like, and I put astrology in that category, but that's for another day. And I feel like the more I'm in that, because of how I'm wired, the more at peace I'm in. And so I realized with work, when my clients were healing from trauma, that was like a sexual violence is a soulful tear. Like you can't just, it's not even just in your body. It's not even just in your mind. It's in your soul. Like if someone violates you in that way. And that's what kind of put me on the journey of like, getting into other forms of spirituality and bringing them into my work, because I feel like, well, I can't look at a client and help them heal if I'm ignoring their heart center and their soul. And that like put me in the path to learn more of how can I integrate this in my work. And I think that's been because I also have utilized that in my own personal life. So I feel like ignoring that is a disservice. And not to say therapists need to do that. I'm just saying that's why I'm the way that I am. But it's because of a lot of the personal, and because of a lot of the violence that I've worked with, victims of violence, how deep that violation goes into your spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, a lot of people used to call spirituality, they attach religion to it. And I think we're realizing you can, it's okay if you do, and I respect that, but you don't have to. You don't have to.
I find spirituality is a very individual experience. Yeah. On how you open up and connect to like the essence of who you are, which I think, as we grow up, we're kind of programmed, by religion, by society, by our environment, by culture, by many things, by TV, music, all of that kind of influences us, and we forget who we are in all those things. And so I'm grateful that I had that spiritual awakening, because it really brought in, and it made me heal a lot of things. And even with my parents, like there was so much negative history there where it got me to a place of, well, I'm not only healing me, but I'm healing them. Where you have that generational trauma break, like you're the cycle breaker, where it's like, I need to free my children. I can't let all those things that were put on me put them on my kids. And so being a conscious parent too, spirituality affects that in your parenting.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I was just saying, like how you speak to them, or I do things to like I apologize to my kids. My parents never apologized to me.
Mhm.
Like when I mess up, I apologize. I have a conversation with them. When there's something that gets blown up out of proportion, I come back and there's feedback, and we talk about like, well, how did it escalate? And what do you do in that situation, where I'm helping them navigate real life so they know what to do when they're out there in the world. I had to learn everything the hard way.
Yeah, like I went to Catholic school from first grade to 12th, and more like because initially my parents didn't go to church, and I was really placed in it because the Roosevelt School District and public school is the only one I could have gone to if I didn't do Catholic school, private school. So I kind of was placed there, not because my parents were religious. It was because that was a good school to put me in. And, I went to church with school. I didn't go in my home life. I learned about Catholicism. Even now, like, make you feel like, well, if you don't go to church and you don't pray and you don't have this certain view, you're not spiritual, you're not religious. And I'm like, well, okay, so then the rapist that goes to church and prays, as opposed to me, who I'm a good person and I don't, so that makes them better. That makes him more of a spiritual person than me, because I'm not praying every morning and I'm not going to church every Sunday. And like, it just like confused the fuck out of me. Like, okay, well, maybe I'm not a real Catholic, or I'm not religious, or I do believe in a higher being. I don't think he looks like Jesus. I mean, I don't know. You don't know. We don't know, and we're not going to know, maybe until we transfer to the next realm or whatever. I do believe that there is a spiritual world out there. I've and seen things. I've felt things. Angel, you've seen things. I know people have seen things, and Melissa, you have stories too. But you can't negate that shit. Some things are blown out of proportion, but you can't say that there's nothing going on outside of this physical world.
And I really believe there are things, like you said, like other realms and stuff like that. Because even in times, Angel has called me out of the blue, like, "Oh, I had this dream and I had to talk to you." And then I'm like, "Oh, actually, I had this going on in my life. I can't believe you called me for this." Or even Melissa's brother has called me and been like, "Oh, I was in a meditation." I want me to sound weird, but we had this connection, not in this reality, in another space where it was a healing moment.
Yeah, I really feel like we not everyone taps into their, we don't use all of our brain. We use a very small portion of our brain. Tiny.
Very.
Look, all that power that's in there that's untapped. I don't know if we're like blocked somehow.
There's some veil is how I.
Something doesn't.
I think like with
Yeah.
with Christianity and even other, I'm going to use the term organized religion, but I think with Christianity, especially with some of those African religions that were brought over, they were demonized. So we are almost, especially if you're from the Caribbean or South America, you're not even aware of what really is your ancestry, as far as spiritually, and part of it is Christianity demonized it. So how I heard that, not so much from my mom, but like, oh, don't mess with that stuff, and I remember, I know people to this day think that me dabbling with it, not don't dabble, but like, utilizing astrology and believing in it is like, witch stuff. And it's a science. Like it's like old.
And it's so on
And
point.
not only that, it was like a science with astronomy. I always say this
Mhm.
because it has to be said. People don't realize this. Astronomy and astrology were together, and the church separated it to devalue it. And to this day, people say, "Oh, I don't know if I believe in that. I'm a Christian. I don't believe in that stuff." I'm like, it's not about belief. It's a fact. It's a chart. You don't need to like love it, but it's a real thing. It's not some fake, thing. And there is a spiritual component to astrology, at least for me. And so I think that, but back to the Caribbean, like for example, with Hinduism, we know that there's a lot of goddesses and gods, and we don't demonize that, but we demonize Oshun, and we do demonize Yamaya, and we demonize Chango, whatever. And so when Santeria came and they merged the two, there are the saints that they had to pray to hide. But really, it's a deity behind them, right? Like Oshun or Santa Barbara. And they're praying to Santa Barbara, but it's somebody else. Like it's Chango, right? Angel, you're the one who told me. So I'm just saying that that's a component that we need to acknowledge as well. And that we don't really know. I bring some of that to my retreat. Actually, I bring these flowers that you see right here. These are my retreat flowers. Me and Ida had a retreat 3 weeks ago. Oh, look at them. How beautiful. And because we dedicated them to our ancestors. And I was showing her, I'm like, oh my God, they're still blooming. They're still beautiful. And we had an altar. I've had people not want to come to my retreat because of my altar. I'm like, there's an altar in Catholicism. I don't get it, but okay.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
mean, like there's a lot of brainwashing there. Or you hear the word voodoo with the Haitian religions, there's a visceral reaction, right? I mean, I think that we need to acknowledge that piece as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. And even for me, when I first had my kind of like open myself up to this I call it spiritual awakening, but I was lost because I'm like, well, what do women do? Because everything was male figures as far as I knew, like, right? So you look at Buddha, it's a male figure. You look at Jesus, a male, like everything was a male figure. And I was like, well, what do women do? Like, I can't just go become a monk and forget my family and go meditate in a mountain somewhere, like, or a lot of some of the other religions where only the men can go into the temple, right? The women have to stay outside. And, I'm like, well, what do women do? And I remember Melissa gave me a deck for Divine Feminine. And I studied that for a long time. And it was all these different women from all different religions, goddesses, deities, saints of nuns, all these spiritual women. A lot of them got killed for it. But, for me, after studying all that and reading more about it, for me, it was like, oh, okay, so men go to God, God comes to women. I don't have to go anywhere. And I'm like, all these women showed the way. Like, it's in you. Like, God's in you. Like, we're creative. We can create life. Like, we have a direct connection to God. And so, for me, it was like that helped me deepen my meditation and really heal and focus in instead of me looking for something outside of myself. So that was interesting.
Angel, do you find that at being an RN, you know how you're out there, you took when you were at the bedside or whatever, you took so much care of others that when you got home, you're like, fuck, I'm not doing shit.
Yeah, compassion fatigue.
I
Oh yeah. Oh,
Mhm.
absolutely. It was exhausting. And the thing was that during those years when I was in the hospital, I was working the night shift.
Me too.
The overnight shift. 7P to 7A doesn't exist. Your 7A is not happening. You're getting out like 9.
Right.
So exhausted. And I come home and I basically I couldn't function.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing was that I don't know why. My wife just didn't understand that. And she just thought that I was just lazy. Because it will take about a day to get back into my regular cycle.
Right.
So then I enjoy my other day off. Because you have to regulate your cycle, like the sleep cycle, if you have off after a shift. So it was just I got no grace from my wife for a long time. Like she made me believe I was lazy. I was like how do you function? Like in her eyes, as long as she can work her hours and come home and do the things she does with the kids and stuff like that, I should be able to meet her 50-50.
No, but it's like we were waking up as if it was our morning, but everyone's going to sleep. So,
Right. Yes.
it's like it was so I did it for 7 or 8 years, 7P to
I did like
7A.
5. They're like 5 years.
Yeah, and you didn't work 3 days. You worked like 5 because you slept the other 2 and you lost them. You would like 5 out of the 7 days you lost. Like that was it.
And it wasn't until my wife actually became a patient in the hospital, yeah, the tune changed because she realized what the nurses in the nighttime were doing
Mm-hmm.
and how we're moving beds to other rooms. We're getting new admissions. We're doing CPR like the day shift does. That's there is different as far as like the dynamic, as far as like family members being there to like take your time. That's not really there, but you're still doing. You still have poor nursing to patient staffing, so you're like always constantly like trying to catch up and cutting corners, which that was horrible. So when she realized that, so that was her realization. She was like, "Oh man, I'm so sorry that I treated you that. You guys actually have to go through it."
Yeah,
Thank you for acknowledging that.
I got you.
And it's also like your the amount of hours, because I know when I worked in sexual violence and I worked 20 hours a week, and it felt like 40, because it was
Mhm.
trauma, a lot of trauma. That's a different level of, or I worked in community mental health and they were just giving me we were a factory, like giving us patients. And I'd work 4 days a week. So I'd have a 3-day weekend. Of course, everybody's like, well, you're lucky. But I was exhausted.
Mm-mm.
By the 4th day or the 5th day, I'm like, I need one of those 3 days to just decompress, And so I don't think people realize the level of bandwidth some of this work can do to you, especially if you're already a highly sensitive person or you're
That's what I was gonna say.
water sign.
Empath. Yeah, yeah.
That's
You're
like a
soaking
secondary
in that
trauma.
energy.
Was it considered like secondary trauma when you're working with those trauma
It just
patients?
takes a lot. It's a lot. I mean, it's like one violence, sexual violence, domestic violence. That's a lot. Or then you're in community mental health where there's a lot of poverty, and then it's like one person after the other, after the other, after the other. Not only that, like it's just not effective. Like, so you're just putting out like a factory, 10 clients a day. That's like, what human can see 10 clients a day? That doesn't make sense. How effective am I going to be by the 7th client, or whatever? Now I don't see more than 3 in a day, and I'm very present, but I know that I have my limit. Obviously I'm in a different stage in my career, but these are the things we go through. And yeah, so sometimes I have so many nurses in my life that I'm like, 3 days a week, that's like 5, like the minimum. Besides just the night thing, just the level of your work is intense. And then when you're a parent, imagine like you got to keep going.
Mhm.
And there's also a sense of liability. I know, like for me, that's what is always in my job. When I'm like, you have to cover your ass, and you're carrying the weight of liability, which is invisible, but it's always the potential of something going wrong on your watch that always like gives me like hidden anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to run your own clinic, Sam. Like that's to me. Oh my gosh, that's wild to me that you have to run your own clinic and like just not just that, like everything else that your position requires. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Right. And we're seeing them for everything, everything. Like we were just having a conversation today about, what if you have an athlete that wants to harm themselves or whatever, or they make a comment and something goes off, because we're always reading people. Like, is this a mental issue? Is this a emotional issue? Is this a physical issue? Like there's so many different things, and we're constantly reading people and trying to figure out what it is their need is. And, it's a lot. It's like, what hat do I wear for
Yeah,
this one?
sing for us. Hold on.
Girl.
Yeah,
Woo.
talk amongst yourselves. Hold on.
You're still the show monkey.
And that's a fact. Love is a game that we all play. There's one thing I've got to say. I gave you my heart and I gave you my world. I spent a lonely night, don't remember the words. Every time you touch me, my body starts to quiver. All I wanna do is love you all night long. Can't let you go, my love. It's you that I need. You keep me wanting you. You push my love aside. Can't let you go, my love. It's you that I need. You keep me wanting you. You push my love aside.
Cora's gonna sue us.
What is like a big, so I just went to Stony Brook with my daughter, and like I told you guys, like all these like memories started flooding back. Like, what is like a funny memory that you remember from Stony Brook? Like, I'll never forget the Cisco.
Which one?
The what?
The Cisco night.
Was that the
She
night
had
I
to
got
be
drunk
was
as hell?
We all got drunk.
Yes,
We
and what's
all
her name?
remember.
Denise.
Yeah, no,
Were
Denise
you
wasn't
crying
there
on
yet.
that? Because I remember you
No, this
crying.
was our freshman
We were
year.
freshman year, and me, Samantha,
So then I
and
remember
Regina,
this.
me, Samantha, and Regina got shit faced.
Toa.
Well, that was often.
You know, Cisco was like crack juice. They called it
Remember when you guys finally went to a suite? What we were in
hand. No,
hand.
yeah, hand.
Yeah. We do the epic party at the end of the year.
I have pictures of little Melissa's birthday and the stripper that we hired.
Yep, that was
Mhm.
epic.
Okay.
And all the empty bottles
That's
on
what I'm
the
trying to get at.
windowsill. Why
Every
did you do
bottle that
that?
we emptied, we'd put up on their
So
ledge.
proud.
And I wanted to throw up every time I looked at it because I know that shit fucked us up. Oh my God. It was Ray and your brother, Jose, had to pick me up and like,
Oh, because the weed?
no, I didn't do weed there. I was drunk as shit because it just hit me.
Yeah, no,
And we were,
it was one of those nights because it was a party school, so we had a lot of performers. So it was one of those performers,
yeah,
like one of
because
those
Kid
reggae
Capri used to
artists. It was a
come.
big night, yeah, or
Yeah,
hip
Kid
hop
Capri used to come into the
union
Union. Remember
parties.
the Kid
Yeah,
Capri parties? And and they'd come in and oh my God, they had to take me home. Oh, it was bad. I remember Janice, poor Janice. We left her in the ER.
We went to the ER like 5
no,
times.
that was next level drunk.
Yeah. I think I was close to that, but
Do you remember, Angel, that you beat the shit out of somebody?
Angel,
Remember that?
you?
I don't remember this.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Because some guy, you were walking to class or whatever, and some guy said some shit to you, and you jumped it by yourself.
That was my freshman year. I told you. Oh my God.
Would you throw him in the bushes? What'd you do with him?
I don't know where we ended up, but man, that was so stupid. I could have gotten my ass handed to me because he was on some team. I don't know what the hell team it was, but like I must have had all this anger. I don't remember the full thing, but I remember man, and I was the one who threw the first punch technically because I went and I tackled him. I threw the leg so that I could like flip him back and he could fall on his back. Damn, and then I had my senior ring on, and that's what I was using to like pound him.
Oh my
Know
God.
that?
I messed up my finger. My finger was like all jacked up because I was like, listen,
Angel devil.
I forgot about that. Oh my God, I must have been like, I must have repressed it because that's just not me.
But you just,
It's
But
not
apparently
you.
it was
That's
me.
a
it's totally
totally
not
out of
you.
character.
I would never have thunk.
That was my freshman year. Oh my gosh.
He's like, I straddled him, and I was punching him.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes.
Did you
'Cause
know
I
him?
think I panicked. After I did it, I panicked because I realized I was in over my head. But that's what made me like, I was just going off. And then I was like, I jetted. I don't even know what that, I don't know if somebody pulled me off or I jetted. But I know that moment had happened. Oh my gosh. Wow. Took me back.
Did you know him?
Way back.
Was he just some dude that came up to you or you knew him kinda?
No, I didn't know him. I don't even remember what crap he was saying. Man, I don't even.
You blocked that shit out.
I must have blacked out, yeah, and in that process blacked that out because it was something that triggered me.
Mm-hmm. I bet you it felt good.
I think after the fact, but during the fact, I kind of went through all the feelings of oh shit, what the hell did I get myself into? The moment I tackled him, and then like I need to get out of this fight before the freaking I get over, and then that's it.
It's okay.
I just remember all the union parties every
oh my
Friday.
God,
Great.
so fun. I remember
Okay.
us getting together and contemplating if we were all going to stay or go for the weekend.
Oh, to go home.
Like, okay, who's going away this weekend? Who's staying? You know, like we would kind of discuss it.
I went
I
home a lot.
remember you got the guys because like Angel and all them lived across the hall, and they would eat our snacks, and we would get pissed off.
You guys would have the best snacks. Oh my God!
Did we? I forgot.
And Samantha had the best cold cuts. Hansel and Gretel, I still remember.
Where'd you
Yeah.
get it from?
Her dad.
Her
My
dad.
dad.
That's how great a memory that was for me.
Hansel and Gretel cold cuts. They don't exist anymore. It's changed so much now. But I was like, oh my God, I still have the class here. Oh my God, we rollerbladed here. You know,
We should all go back.
yeah. It's so different now.
I
Mhm.
want to see
And I
it.
remember your roommate Santa when she would the sneaky shit she did just to like see how you did on a test for chemistry. She would like flip your grade over and look because she wanted to know if she did better or not.
Oh my
I'm
God.
like,
Yeah,
what the
because
fuck was that?
she thought I was an airhead and I wasn't.
Oh shit,
And she would get mad that I would had better grades than her. And I remember that was our falling out at the end of the year. And she was like, I don't understand. Because like I finished the math final fast. And she came back bawling. And she's like, I just don't understand. You party every weekend. You stay here every
We
weekend.
so did.
And how are you still passing these classes? And she's like literally in tears, like crying. And she's so mad. And it was like a backhanded compliment. And she was just like, she's like, I just don't understand how you have all these good grades. And I don't understand how you're passing the sciences and the math. And then I looked at her and I said, because we went to high school together. And I'm like, you realize I was in all your AP classes in high school. Right? Like, just because I didn't belong to the nerdy club or whatever and have an S on my chest saying that, I was an honor student doesn't mean I was in your classes. Hello? But again, I acted the dumb all the time. And so
What would you say to your 18-year-old self?
Me, I'd say follow your passion and not what your mom told you to be.
that's a
Because I
good
didn't
one.
want to be a
Good one.
nurse. I should have done like entertainment or something.
Or interior design or fashion
Yeah.
or something. It's so good.
For me, I would tell myself, give yourself grace. Things are not going to remain as they are. The roads and the paths to success will open up. And don't stop loving with that heart of yours.
Sammy, you still thinking?
No, yeah, I was still thinking, but I think what I would probably say is to never settle, whether it's work, relationships, anything like that. Never to settle, and that to know that these heavy things I'm carrying at that moment, at that time, is what's going to make me so unfuck with the ball as an adult.
Yes, that's very true. Never settle.
And to just keep on keeping, because, one day you're going to look back and be like, if I didn't have all those experiences, I wouldn't be who I am today.
Yep.
Yes.
I would say that girl was very herself. She didn't care. She just was not that she didn't care. She was free. She felt free. I would say that because my mom was very strict, and it was the first time in my life, besides being an adult, like 18, turning 18, that I had a little bit of freedom, that I was able to explore who I was, and I was unapologetically myself. And then life took over, and people tell you that you shouldn't do this, or you shouldn't do that, or you shouldn't act like this, or you shouldn't act like that. And then it's coming full circle because that authenticity is what I have stepped into again. Not that I never lost it, but I think there was too much noise in the background, and now there's not. So I'd say that stay that way.
I like that.
I want to thank you guys for inviting me onto this podcast. This is so much fun, and I'm always game for any future talks. And Mel, I'm always down for any of the talks that you have. I'm game.
Join us next week as we discuss generational and cultural aspects of corporate America with special guest Eddie Salomon.